Hey guys, Rob from Georgia here with you, VHS82 apostrophe. It is episode number 10. Can it be? We've hit double digits already. I shouldn't say already, but we're moving kind of quick. Moving on with our Space 1999 Disc 3 with an episode. Ray Austin, was it? Yeah. Alpha Child. Great guest star. Julian Glover. What can you say about him? General Veer's Empire Strikes Back. Ring any bells? Or Donovan from The Last Crusade. And so you got to remember there's this connection, right, with Brian Johnson and an Elder who will, be special effects, miniature technicians, whatever, for The Empire Strikes Back. So there's going to be some carryover there with eventually with them moving over and reminding Lucas, if he even needs to be reminded, that there was this little show called Space 1999. But the guest appearances still rock. Now, I have to say, with Alpha Child, this is the last few episodes have been just absolutely out of this world, and this one was I found a little bit wanting. It's I think. Okay, here's the biggest problem. First of all, October 16, 1975, it first aired. And I can't remember the Force of Life. I can't remember when that aired without looking. But this story and that story, this story really comes across as there ought to be a connection between Force of Life and this one. If you remember at the end of that one, Ian McShane's character went into a nuclear generator, and consumed all the energy he needed to move on to that next step of evolution, which was back into that blue sphere that we saw, it was at the beginning of the episode. And so now you have a story in Alpha Child where you have a guy by the name of Jack Crawford who had died like 7 months prior. And there's a birth. It's the first birth on Alpha, or Moonbase Alpha. It's the first birth, and the problem with this birth is that the baby is only in the incubator for a few seconds, and suddenly you're looking at a 5-year-old kid now who takes upon himself the Damien ambiance. There's something really peculiar and weird about this kid. This kid does not have good intentions. And so, looking back, of course, you had Rosemary's Baby, and I can't remember when The Omen came out. That's right around the same time. I think slightly after. I want to say Omen is 76, 77, something like that. And I'm just guessing. So, it does take, a little bit from this idea of all the apprehension that comes with the possibility of a birth gone wrong. And it doesn't take long for things to go from bad to much worse. But the problem is, when you have the previous episode produced, is the one that sort of leaves sort of a, well, maybe not intentionally, but it does leave kind of a cliffhanger effect. This particular episode, I think, would have been best served had it been, regardless of when it would have aired, right, but produced right after the last one, would have acted as a natural sort of segue sequel to the previous one. And now I know they did a really good job of just keeping the antagonists from ever reappearing, to create, just always wanting to be new with each episode. But this would have been an interesting episode had they taken the end of Force of Life and considered it for a moment and went, well, what if the wife of Ian McShane has a baby months after the fact, and it comes with some serious creepy baggage. Village of the Damned, the original. You could have really had fun with that. And in that particular episode, there would have been no reason for the boy to ever be more than his 5-year-old self, which they named Jackie after the father. which is a mysterious. They never really explain, I don't think, how that father died. Although Koenig points to a possible connection between the two, it really seems to be irrelevant eventually on as the story suddenly changes with a couple menacing spacecraft that will suddenly find themselves or appear over Moonbase Alpha. And suddenly the young boy who is 5, who has been taken in by Moonbase Alpha as the new darling of, although Koenig has not bought into it completely. Everyone but Bergman, Alan Carter, Helena seems to be a little distant, but it's kind of a back and forth with her. He is the darling. Now, he is born deaf, but he seems to be intelligent beyond anyone's ability to apprehend, right? And suddenly when these spacecraft arrive, he goes through a transformation where suddenly he's no longer 5, but he's an adult. This is Julian Glover now takes over, and his name will become Jarek. And so it won't be long that we'll find out. His plan, of course, is those people in the spacecraft hovering over Moonbase Alpha, in fact, have fled their planet, because their planet, it has a compulsory DNA sort of, you will live within the construct that we have set up, our DNA structure. There's to be no variance at all, no room for differences. And so, and it's weird, they're fleeing sort of an authoritarianized idea society looking for freedom, but they have no problem of they're going to take over Moonbase Alpha and all of its occupants, and that means basically, killing everyone by taking over their bodies and living on forever as, sort of an extension of their race via all the people in Moonbase Alpha. And so you got that will eventually ride to its conclusion where, somebody from the planet that they have fled from will finally show up to clean up the mess. And it does seem a bit forced or awkward. It just seems like the story could have been paced totally different. And it does really feel like once Julian Glover comes into the mix, it just feels like the film or the show takes a turn for something lesser than maybe what it could have been had it really taken this idea of this 5-year-old who will, in the end, cause horrific havoc on this base. Could have been a really creepy episode. But that's not the direction it eventually went. And I almost really wish they would have used Force of Life, kind of the same way, think about it in terms of how the makers of Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan went back and used Space Seed as a natural extension to push that story forward into, a really just a magnificent film. Had they taken that episode and maybe not even, but, produced, right after, and then it would have probably aired, a year after the fact or whatever, how this stuff played out. It might have been an interesting extension of Force of Life, and kind of leaving a farewell gift. He floats off as an evolved little blue sphere off into wherever, moving on to the next place. And you suddenly, 6 months later, you have the birth. His wife has a child, and who now will just create havoc. Could have been a really, really intriguing thing. And so for me, this episode is being too close to Force of Life. It just, I don't know, it just begs for much more. And I'll say though, Julian Glover's freaking awesome, man, as the adult alien. And the boy, Wayne, Wayne, I can't think of his name. He was fabulous as the 5-year-old, man. And the resolution that we're finally given, does bring a conclusion to the issue that they were being faced with. But I found it a little wanting, maybe because a piece of it really had potential to go off and be something really, really horrifically creepy, whatever. Instead, it kind of takes that turn, and the conclusion is a bit rushed too, and it just sort of feels, okay, well, there was another great guest appearance, but it's still a pretty solid episode. Okay, I'm probably being a little overly critical. It's still it's still a solid episode. In what, you know, there will be episodes that'll be, I'm sure I'll enjoy, or it will strike me in a much more powerful way. This one has left me a little bit. I did enjoy Julian Glover though, and just, you know, so far we've had Nita and we've had Veers, two veterans from The Empire Strikes Back in their younger days in this show, and that's, you know, and Ian McShane in the last one. The guest appearances, be it Christopher Lee or Peter Cushing, it's all fine. I can't even imagine who's to come yet. I forget between here and the end of year one. I really can't remember, because I kind of flew through them really quick, like. So it's fun going back and taking my time and working through and really paying attention to a lot of it. I'll say this before I close this thing out: the miniatures, the matte paintings, the visual effects, everything is still, man. I was reminded watching Planet of the Vampires from '65, Mario Bava. There's an aspect to that story involving the alien entities that they run afoul of on Aurora. I think that's the name of the planet that they follow a distress signal to. And I'm just going to go off on a limb. If you ever seen Planet of the Vampires, yeah, it really does feel like Jarek offers, in his explanation of what they're seeking to do and why it is they're doing it, it really does feel like Bava's Planet of the Vampires was as much an influence on this episode as it was an influence on Ridley Scott's Alien. I'll say that. So I'll leave it there, I guess. It's an intriguing thought, perhaps. If you've never seen Planet of the Vampires, you need to. Definitely Mario Bava. Right between Black Sunday and Bay of Blood, right? And it's just right in the middle of that. Anyways, here at episode 10, Alpha Child, solid, but left a little wanting in it. But still, man, solid. It's good stuff. Space 1999. Just appreciate all the support. Thank you for the views and just for staying with. And it's a fun ride, man. We always end these things off with Go Bills.